Hello dear students, welcome to the video tutorial on cryptography. In the last video we have discussed about the IKE infrastructure, PKI, that is public key infrastructure, and what are the parameters of the public key infrastructure. So in this video we are going to discuss about the remote user authentication principle. So the remote user is nothing but the user situated at the different location. And we know that in the network environment, a user can communicate with other users, via internet, and these users may not be present in the same local space. They can be available remotely. So one user wants to communicate, a client wants to communicate with the server, but this server is not situated locally. It may be present at the remote location. Now this user has to be authenticated by the server. So this is called as remote user authentication. And what principle this server will follow to check whether this user is authenticated or not. So all these things we will take care in remote user authentication principle. So what are the principles that we will apply for the authentication of the users? Now the fundamental security building block. So this remote authentication, it is one of the very important security feature. So without authentication we can't achieve the security. Authentication becomes very integral part of any of the security. So the basis of access control and user accountability. So this authentication is the basis of access control. That means by the basis of authentication only we will provide the access control. If it is an authenticated user, we will provide him the control to access all the facilities, and also it is one of the mechanism to account the user. So user accountability can be done by using authentication principle. So it is also the process of verifying an identity claimed or for a system entity. So authentication is also the process of verifying an identity. So it follows two steps here. One is identification, which specifies the identifier, and another one is verification, which is called as bind entity. So we will follow two steps here in the authentication principle. One is identification principle, another one is verification. So as we know that identification is nothing but specifying the identifier, and verification is nothing but bind entity and identifier. We will bind the entity as well as identifier together. This is distinct from the message authentication. This process of remote this authentication, it is different when compared to message authentication process. So what are the means of the user authentication? So we have generally four things or four different measures that we will use to identify or to authenticate the user. So these are four means: number 1, 2, 3 and 4. So these means can be used together, or we can use a single means also for the authentication of the user. So you can see here there are four general means of authenticating a user's identity, which can be used alone or in combination. We can use this four means alone, or we can use it in a combination. So what is the first mean? Something the individual knows. So we'll authenticate the user by this means, that user knows something. What user knows? Usually he knows password, he knows the PIN number, personal identification number, or he knows the answer to the pre-arranged set of questions. So this is known to the individual. So you might have seen passwords, which is known by the user. PIN will be generated on the user side only, where he can enter the PIN and he can make authentication. And also you can see this some pre-arranged questions will be set. Okay, you might have seen this in recovering password. When you are recovering password, it is asking you the set of questions. So based on the answers of questions, your password will be recovered, and this also will know to the individual person. Okay, so this is what first means, that is something the individual knows. Second is something the individual possesses. What something the individual possesses? This includes the cryptographic keys, electronic key card, smart card, and the physical keys. This is referred as a token. Okay, so this all things are referred as token. So this is what individual possesses. Or each individual will have cryptographic keys. Each individual will have the electronic key card, smart card, and the physical keys. The third mean is something the individual is. Okay, so we will judge the individual based on his recognition by fingerprint. We will authenticate him by using the fingerprint. We will recognize his fingerprint. If it is matched, then we will call it as authenticated user. We also use the retina scan for the authentication purpose. So individuals, these all called as biometrics. Okay, because these all are things of biology: fingerprint, retina. We can also recognize by face. Okay, so this is based on the individual biometrics. And another one is something the individual does, dynamic biometrics. So this is static biometrics. All these are static because these things will not change. Fingerprint, retina, face, this will not change. Something individual does is by using the dynamic biometrics of the individual. Dynamic biometrics is nothing but handwriting of the person. By using handwriting also, we can identify the person or we can authenticate the person. By using his voice also, by using his voice or audio, we can authenticate that person. Okay, so these are called as dynamic biometrics: handwriting, voice recognition, all these things. So these are the four means of user authentication. So let us see what is mutual authentication. So just now we have seen is not mutual. Okay, so used to convince parties of each other identity and to exchange the session key. So in the mutual authentication, always two parties will communicate with each other and two parties will exchange their session keys. Exchange the session keys. So this is what happening in the mutual authentication. Always in the mutual authentication, this person should know this person, and also it has to exchange the session key. Okay, so this exchanging may be one way or it may be two way. That means either sender can exchange it to the receiver, or receiver may not exchange the same thing with the sender. That becomes the one way. So otherwise it is two way, mutual. Okay, where both sender and receiver will involve in the session key exchange. So what are the key issues in the mutual authentication is, one is confidentiality, to protect the session key, because we need to protect the session key. So if the session key is not protected, then any user can attack the session key and he can hack our channel. And second one is timeliness. So this is used to prevent the reply attack. Already you know what is reply attack and all these things. So these are the two key issues in the mutual authentication. For a network based user authentication, the most important method involves cryptographic keys and something the individual knows, such as password. But when we go for the network based user authentication, so we should have two important methods here. One is cryptographic keys, another one is passwords that individual knows. Okay. This is about the remote user authentication, mutual authentication, and one-way authentication. So let us study the remote user authentication using symmetric encryption. Just now we have seen what is just remote authentication, user authentication. Now, if we want to do the remote user authentication using symmetric encryption, how we will do it? Let us study it. So symmetric encryption, as you know that symmetric means in the symmetric encryption, we will generate pair of keys. We will generate secret keys. Okay, we will generate secret key of the sender as well as the receiver. Secret key of sender and receiver. So how this secret keys has been exchanged between sender and receiver so that they can authenticate together. Okay, either in one way or in mutual. So how this is done, we will see it in a. Okay, so the outline is we will see the mutual authentication when we are using symmetric encryption, as well as we will see how the one-way authentication takes place between the sender and receiver. So let us see how the mutual authentication is done in the remote user authentication using symmetric encryption. So two-level hierarchy of symmetric encryption keys can be used to provide confidentiality for communication in a distributed environment. So in the symmetric encryption keys, we are using two-level hierarchies. Two-level hierarchy means two types of secret keys has been used. One secret key is used for authentication purpose, and another secret key we will use to encrypt the session key. Another secret key we will use to encrypt the session key. Okay, and by using these two, we will achieve the confidentiality for the communication. So there should be the information exchange between the sender and receiver should be confidential. To achieve this confidentiality, we have to provide two-level hierarchy of symmetric encryption keys. Okay. In general, this strategy involves the use of trusted KDC. Already we know what is KDC and how this KDC will help you to exchange the session key and everything we have studied in the third module. The same topics are there repeated here. Okay, right. So each party in the network shares the secret key known as master key with the KDC. Okay, so for KDC, the users are connected like this. Consider this is KDC and this is user A and user B. So what these users will do is, these users will share the master key with the KDC. So A will share his master key with the KDC, B will share his master key with the KDC. This master key which is there with the KDC will know to only KDC and A. A's master key will be known by A and KDC, whereas B's master key will be known by B and KDC itself. So that means the master key of A is unknown to master key of B. So please remember this point, very important. I have tested this point in the last module itself. Okay. The KDC is responsible for generating keys to be used for short-term over connection. So what KDC will do, it will generate a key which is used for only short term. Okay, so for short term, for the communication between the KDC and the other party, it will generate a key that is a short term key which is also called as session key. Session key. So using this session key, we will establish the logical connection between the KDC and the other parties. By using this session key only, we will establish the logical connection between two parties. Okay, as you can see here, the short time over connection, session key for logical connection between two parties known as session key, and for distributing those keys using master key to protect the distribution. So KDC, what it will do is, it has all the master keys of the clients. By using this master key of client, it will send the session key. Okay, so where KDC will generate the session key, this session key is encrypted by using the master keys of the user. That means this session key will be protected by using the master keys. Okay, and this master keys will be known by KDC and the generator of the master key. Suppose A is the generator of master key, that means A will know the master key as well as only KDC will know the master key. Other users will not know the master key of A. Initially, this method is proposed by Needham and Schroeder. So these are the researchers who proposed this method for secret key distribution using KDC, includes authentication feature. So using this Needham and Schroeder model of secret key distribution, we can include the authentication features in the KDC. So I have already explained this scenario. This is called as key distribution scenario. Already we have seen what is key distribution scenario in the third module, key distribution scenario. The same scenario is there, which helps us for the mutual authentication between the initiator and responder. Okay, this is summarized as follows, as you know that. So first, initiator will send the ID A, ID B and N1 to key distribution center. So ID A is nothing but identity of A, that is initiator, identity of B, that is the responder, and then nonce. What is nonce here? Nonce is a random generated number which is used for only one time. We have to use it for only one time, just like your OTP. Okay, next. So what KDC will do? KDC will reply back to A. So what it will reply, you can see here. So it reply backs the session key, identity of B and nonce. Then it also replies the encrypted format of KB. KB is nothing but the master key of B, KS, that is session key, and then identity of A. This whole message is encrypted by using KA. You can see here, this whole message is encrypted. E is nothing but encryption. This whole message is encrypted by using KA, where KA is the master key of A. Master key of A, this is master key of B. KB is the master key of B. KS means session key. Okay, so as you can see here, session key is encrypted by the master key of A. So once it reaches to A, once this message reaches to A, what A will do? A will use his master key for the decryption purpose. Okay, because it is encrypted by KA and that master key is there with A, right? So this encryption which is done by KDC, now it is decrypted by A. So what A will get? A will get the session key as well as identity of B and then nonce. But A can't decrypt this one, because this red message which is there here, E of KB, KS, ID A, this message is encrypted by master key of B. This message is encrypted by master key of B. But B, this A, does not know the master key of B. So hence this message can't be decrypted by A. Only it will decrypt this message. Then what A will do? So since it can't decrypt this message will be shared to B. Okay, you can see here from A to B in the third step. What it is sharing? You can see here it is sharing master key of B, session key which has been shared by key distribution center, and then its identity. Now this message will reach to B. Now B can decrypt this message because this message is encrypted by B's master key. So B can decrypt this message and it can see the session key, or it come to know the session key as well as who is the sender. You can see here who is the sender. That also it will know. And then for this session key, it will add another nonce, that is N2, and that is encrypted. And this will be sent back to A. So B will send back to A. So what it will send back? It will send back the session key as well as the knowns, new knowns, that is N2. So again, when A receives this message, so A again it will decrypt this message. So it will generate, so session key is already there, and for this knowns it will add a function of knowns2, and this will be encrypted, and this encrypted message will be shared again to B. Okay, so this is what happened in the key distribution scenario. Okay, so these are the 5 steps which we will follow here in the mutual authentication. So this is called as Needham-Schroeder Protocol. But this protocol is still vulnerable for the form of reply attack. Okay, so this protocol, if we follow this protocol also it is vulnerable for the reply attack. So how reply attacks takes place here, you can see. Suppose that opponent X has been able to compromise the old session key. X can impersonate A and trick B into using the old key by simply replying step 3. So what happens here is, there is an opponent X who is sitting here. There is an opponent X. So what he can do is, so when A wants to communicate with B, A is sending this information to the B. So what he can do is, he can take this information and he can send this. Already A has shared this information. This X can copy this information. So it can copy the session key, identity of A, then master key of B. And after that, what it will do, once it has been shared to responder B, after some times this X can also share the same information to the B. Okay, because it has the copy of this information. X has already have the copy of this information. That information, after some time, it has been shared to B. So again, what we will think, this message is by A. The B doesn't know that X has attacked the message. X has copied the message. What B thought that? B thought that this message is again from the initiator A. Again, what it will do? It will next again send back the 4th step. Again send back the 4th step. Okay. Next again 5th step will be shared by the initiator. Again what it will do? Again X again share the same message again. Again we will think that this message is from A. Again it will send back the session key and knows to again this. So this thing will repeat. Hence it is called a reply attack. This thing will repeat again and again because X has the copy of this 3rd step. So hence it is called as reply attack. So this Needham-Schroeder Protocol, it is also vulnerable for reply attack. Unless B remembers the indefinitely all previous session key used with A, B will unable to determine that this is a reply, because unless B does not know the session key, unless it will not having the knowledge of the session key, B thoughts that the message is shared by A only. B does not know that that message is shared by opponent X. It enables to determine this message is shared by X. What it thought is this messages came from A only. Okay. Next, if X can intercept the handshake message in step 4, then it can impersonate A's response in step 5. Okay. So once this message will go to the responder what he will think, this message is from A only, then he will go to this 4th step. So what this attacker or the opponent will do is, the opponent will also copy this session key and knowns to. Okay. And this copy will be shared to initiator A. Again, initiator A now thought that this message is from responder B. Actually, the message is sent by the opponent X. Now, again, it will reply back to B. in the fifth step. Again, what this opponent will do is, again he will copy this message, and after some time he will share the message to B. Now B again thought that this message is from A only. Actually it has been sent by opponent X. So like this opponent X will play like initiator also, will play the role like responder also. This is called as impersonate. Impersonate means he is playing both the roles. He is playing the roles of initiator as well as he is playing roles of the responder. Here this responder will think that message is coming from A, and initiator A thinks that the message is coming from the responder B. But actually that message has been shared by the opponent X. I think you got this point. Okay. So from this point, X can send bogus message to B that appears to be that it comes from A using the authenticated session key. As I told, A thought that the message came from B. B thought that the message came from A. Actually, that are the bogus messages which has been sent by the opponent X. So this type of attack can happen, and it is called as a reply attack. So if you follow this Needham-Schroeder protocol model, it is vulnerable for reply attack. Now to overcome this kind of problem, there is another researcher called as Denning. He proposes the method to overcome this weakness by the modification to the Needham-Schroeder Protocol that includes the addition of timestamp in step 2 and step 3. Okay, so to avoid this kind of reply attack, this Denning gone for some modifications in the Needham-Schroeder Protocol. What he has modified is, in the step 2 and step 3, in these two steps, he will add the timestamps. He will add the timestamps so that this reply attack is not possible. So that reply attack can be reduced. To reduce this reply attack, he added a timestamp in step 2 and step 3. So that's what this Denning has done. You can see his proposal. In his proposal, Denning. So certain modification in the Needham-Schroeder model, he proposes this protocol. So you can see in the first step, A is directly communicated with KDC, and what A is communicating with KDC. So what A shares with the KDC? A shares its identity and B's identity to the KDC. Okay. Next, in the second step, you can see here. So KDC is communicating with A. What it has shared? It has shared the session key and identity of B, which has been shared by A. Then T. This T is nothing but timestamp. You can see here, this is the timestamp. Along with the session key and identity of B, it shares the timestamp, and then also it shares the E of KB, KS, ID, A, and T. You can see another timestamp is also added here in the second step. So the second in the second part of the message, it shares the session key, identity of A, and the timestamp. This all thing is encrypted using KB, that is B's master key. So why it has been shown in the red color? Because this can't be encrypted or decrypted by A, because it is encrypted by master key of B, right? So A can't decrypt it. A can decrypt only this one, the part which I have highlighted. Okay, this one. A can decrypt this one because this message is encrypted by KA, that is master key of A. So it can decrypt, and then it can check the session key, identity of the B, and then it can store the timestamp. Okay. In the third step, you can see A is sending a message to B because this party can't be decrypted by A. So it shares this message to B. So you can see here E of KB and then KS ID A, then T timestamp. So this session key, identity of A and the timestamp is encrypted by using KB, that is master key of B. Now once this B received this message, it can decrypt it by using its master key. Then it will get the session key and then identity of A, then the timestamp what has been shared. The timestamp is nothing but the timing. Okay, it is the system time. And in the fourth step, you can see here, the fourth step is the reply from the B to A. So from B to A, it will send the session key and one nonce encrypted in the encrypted format. Session key and nonce, that is N1, will be shared from B to A. And in the last step, A will reply to B by using the session key and F of N1, that is function is applied to the nonce, and this together is encrypted and that has been shared to B. Okay. So now you can see here the extra thing that Denning has done is he added the timestamp in step 2 and step 3. This timestamp is added to avoid reply attack. Avoid the reply attack, because reply attack was the vulnerable feature of the Needham-Schroeder model. Okay. So how this timestamp will help us to avoid the reply attack is, you can see here, T is the timestamp that assures A and B that the session key has only just been generated. Okay, so this timestamp will tell A and B that session key is very fresh, it is just now generated. Because previously what happened in this Needham-Schroeder model, see this, it was not checking the timestamp only. There is no timestamp, hence when that session key is generated or what is the time of session key, that is not known to both initiator as well as the responder. Here what X has did is, it has the copy of this message and after some time he shares that message. So timing is not known to responder as well as the initiator. Now since we have added the timestamp, we come to know that whether it is a fresh generated session key or whether it is a previously generated session key. Thus both A and B knows that key distribution is a fresh exchange. Okay, by using timestamp, this both A and B knows that this key exchange is the fresh one. So how A and B will verify the timestamp? It is by using this formula. Clock minus T is equal to, is less than delta of delta T1 and delta T2, where delta T1 is the estimated normal difference between KDC clock and local clock. Okay, so KDC is clock and local means the user's clock. A and B are the users. So each of this user will have its local clock and KDC will have clock. Suppose consider KDC shares the session key at 4 p.m. and for A it will reach at 4.01 p.m. So what is the difference here? It is the normal difference is 0.01. Similarly, this delta T2. Okay, delta T2 is the expected network delay time. Okay, so consider expected network delays like 0.03. So 0.01 plus 0.03 is 0.04 and this should be always greater than, this value is greater than the timestamp. So once this condition is satisfied, then it can go for the exchange of session. Okay, but the new concern is raised here. One more problem is raised here. Namely, this new scheme requires relay on clock. Okay, we rely on the clocks, we rely on the timing that are synchronized throughout the network points out the risk involved. Okay, because these clocks in the networks are not synchronized, because one clock will have its time, other clock will have its time, the local clock will have another time, the remote clock will have another time. There is no synchronization between the clock that happens in the network. This is another problem that is arrived here. Okay, the solution to this problem. The risk is based on the fact that distributed clock can become unsynchronized as a result of damage on or faults in the clock or synchronization mechanism. As I told, in the distributed system, all the clocks are not synchronized. Each clock will have its own time. Okay, so in such case, there will be damage and there will be faults in the clock time. So the method becomes unsynchronized. The problem occurs when sender's clock is ahead of the intended recipient clock. Okay, sender's clock is ahead, recipient clock is not ahead. In this case, an opponent can intercept a message from the sender and reply it later when timestamp in a message become the current at the recipient side. So in such cases, what happens? Sender timing is too fast, receiver timing is too slow. So what attacker can do is, opponent can copy this message, okay, and he knows that sender is very slow. So he will copy that message and after the correct time only he will share it to the receiver, because receiver is it is lagging, sender is going ahead. So attacker can easily copy this message and he can wait till this recipient timestamp will become correct. Once the recipient timestamp becomes correct, then he will share the message. Now what recipient will think that? The recipient will think that the message came from the original sender. But now here it has been sent by the opponent. So this is the problem with the message, with this Denning protocol. This reply could cause unexpected result, because now it is replied by the opponent, so it can cause unexpected result. Gong refers such attacks as surplus reply attack. So there is another person, another researcher by the name Gong. He refers this kind of attack as surplus reply attack. One way to counter this surplus reply attack is to enforce the requirement that parties regularly check their clock against KDC's clock. So one solution for this surplus reply attack is, each of the parties who is directly communicating with the KDC has to synchronize with the KDC's clock, has to check its timing against the KDC's clock. So this is the alternative solution that is given for surplus reply attack. The other alternative which avoid the need for clock synchronization is to rely on handshaking protocols using nodes. So we'll go with the handshaking protocol to avoid this kind of surplus reply attack. So what is this handshaking protocol? You can see here, this alternative is not vulnerable to surplus reply attack, because the nodes the recipient will choose in the future are unpredictable to the sender. The nodes which is chosen by the recipient will unpredictable to the sender, because nodes are the random generated number, so we can't predict it. Sender and other things can't predict the nodes. The Needham-Schroeder protocol relies on the nodes only, but as we have seen, has other vulnerabilities. The improved strategy was presented in this protocol. So in this protocol, to avoid this surplus reply attack, so somewhat improvement in the Needham-Schroeder protocol is introduced here. So what is the improvement that they have done is, you can see here. So first, instead of directly A was communicating with the KDC, right? Previously in the Needham-Schroeder protocol. Now here A is not directly communicating with the KDC. First A is communicating with B. can see here. First A is communicating with B. So what A can send to B? So A can send to B is identity of A as well as knowns of A. Then B will communicate with KDC. In the second step, B is communicating with KDC. So what B is communicating with the KDC? B is communicating its identity and its knowns, NB is knowns of B. Then it shares the identity of A, knowns of A and TB, that is the timestamp of B. This three together is encrypted by master key of B. This three together is encrypted by master key of B. Then KDC will receive this message and KDC will reply to A. In the third step, you can see KDC will reply to A. So what KDC will reply? KDC will reply identity of B, knowns of A, timestamp, session key which is generated by the KDC, then timestamp of B. This four together will be encrypted by using the master key of A, KA, master key of A. And also the second part where it will share the identity of A, timestamp, the session key and the timestamp of B. This whole together is encrypted by the master key of B. Okay. And at last A will, because A can decrypt this first part, A can't decrypt the red part because it is encrypted by master key of B. So what A will do? A will encrypt this part and it will check what is the identity of B, what is the knowns, what is the session key and what is the timestamp of B. But A can't decrypt this, hence it will share this message to B. You can see here A to B. So A will sending the message to B. What it shares? It shares the ID A, KS, that is session key, the timestamp of B. So that is been encrypted by using B's master key. And also it will share the KS, that is session key and knowns of B. Both session key and knowns of B are encrypted. Okay, so the following protocol ensures that A to B communication. You can see here NA dash. So that means new knowns has been created here. Okay. Next, from B to A, another new knowns is created here, that is NB dash. And then from A to B, it is encrypted by new nodes, that is NB dash. When B receives the message in step 1, it verifies the ticket that has not expired. So when B receives this message from A to B receive this message, right? What it will do? It will verify this message by using this ticket. Ticket is nothing but timestamp, and it will check whether this is expired or not expired. So newly generated means it is not expired. If the timestamp is newly generated means it is not expired. So once it checks this timestamp and new knowns, then it can go for the communication. So hence there will not be any reply attack possible. Because when reply attack is possible, when the opponent X will copy the message and he will share the same message to the another party. So during that, what happened? The timestamp will expire, yes or no? Timestamp becomes older. So once the timestamp becomes older, then we will not receive such message. So like that, we can avoid the reply attack. Right? So how this one-way authentication is possible in the symmetric encryption, you can see here. With some refinement in KDC strategy is a candidate for the encrypted electronic mail. So we'll do some refinement in the KDC strategy so that it can be used for electronic mail. Because we wish to avoid acquiring the recipient B be online at the same time as sender A. So step 5 and 4 been eliminated. Since we are just want one-way communication or one-way authentication. Hence, step 4 and 5 can be eliminated here. So once we eliminate the step 4 and 5 from the previous this Needham-Schroeder protocol, you can see here it is having 5 steps. So from these 5 steps, last 2 steps has been eliminated. So this last 2 step like B to A and A to B. So it was the mutual communication. But now we are talking about only one-way communication. Hence, this last 2 steps will be removed here. You can see here. Okay, you can see here the last 2 steps has been removed here, and the message sequence will be followed like this. So from A to KDC, and from KDC to A, and from A to B. The 4th step was from B to A, and 5th step was from A to B. These 2 has been eliminated. So once you eliminate the 3rd and 4th step from the Needham-Schroeder protocol, it becomes the one-way authentication. So this approach guarantees that only the intended recipient of the message will able to read it. So who is the intended person or who is the recipient? He only can read the message. Others can't read the message. It also provides a level of authentication that the sender is A. Okay, so it tells this B, recipient B, that who is the sender? The sender is A. Okay, so from here only you can see here in the 3rd step, B will come to know that who is the sender by checking its identification, IDA, by checking its identification. Okay, so then he comes to know that who is the sender. The protocol does not protect against reply attacks. So this protocol, one-way authentication protocol, it does not give you the protection based against the reply attack, because what opponent or attacker can do is he can take the copy of this message, and this message he can share it to B after some time. So what B will think, this message will come from A only. So again and again if we do the same thing, so it becomes the reply attack. So we can't avoid the reply attack here again. So reply attack possibility is there again. Now, so what is the alternate solution for this again? Okay, reply attack is again possible here. Again we go for handshaking protocol. Okay, to avoid this reply attack again and again we go for handshaking protocol here. This alternative is not vulnerable to a suppressed reply attack, because the nodes the recipient will choose in a future are unpredictable to the sender. Already we know this. Okay, so you can see here, already we know that to avoid the reply attack, what we need to add? We need to add the timestamp in step 2 and step 3. You can see here, timestamps are added in the step 2 and step 3 so that we can avoid the reply attack. So this is what happens in the remote user authentication using symmetric encryption. So we have seen what is mutual authentication and what is one-way authentication here in the remote user authentication using symmetric encryption. So this is all about the video. So just go through all the content and the presentation once. Thank you.